In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to enter work plans into the TA portal. And a few things to start off with. Firstly, I am not using the actual TA portal for this demonstration. I'm using a copy of the TA portal that we use for testing. So just know that when I'm playing around with data in this demonstration, I'm not actually going to be affecting any real data in the system. Okay, so to start off with, when I log into the HUD Exchange, I'm taken to this page called My HUD Exchange, which you can always access by clicking on My HUD Exchange in the top bar. So this is where you can find all of the specific systems on the TA portal. It's also where you can go and edit your account. But you're going to find the TA portal listed down under technical assistance. So the TA portal is broken up into different sections. As TA providers, the ones that will be the most relevant to you are TA work plan, TA management, and TA portal guidance. But let me just run through all of the different sections. So the first one right here, submit a TA request. This is actually accessible to anybody with a HUD Exchange login. So this is where HUD grantees can submit requests for technical assistance. Once they submit a TA request, then it will move on to view TA requests. This is primarily used by HUD staff people. This is where they review requests and determine if the requests will be approved or not approved. So once a request gets approved, it will move on to TA assignments. This is also primarily used by HUD staff, and this is where they make the specific assignments for technical assistance. So this is where they determine the TA type, the TA provider, the eligible funding sources, and if the work plan should be linked to an existing work plan. Next up is TA work plan. So this is primarily going to be used by TA providers and some HUD staff. TA work plan is where you draft, submit, and edit work plans, and it's also where HUD program office reviewers, field office reviewers, and GTRs will review those work plans. Next is the TA management module. So this is where approved work plans will also exist. So a copy of every work plan that's approved also shows up in TA management. And this is where you're going to enter activities and barriers, as well as monthly status reports. And when the TA engagement is completed, this is where you're also going to mark that work plan complete. Next is TA reports. These are just some general reports that you can download. They're Excel files of data in the system. So this is useful if you want to do any kind of data analysis, or maybe if you want to find some work plans more easily. Next is TA portal guidance. This is where you're going to find all of the TA portal related guidance documents. I definitely encourage you to take a look at this. There's some really useful information there. And lastly, we have TA portal users. This is where you can find a database of every HUD Exchange account that has access to the TA portal. So in the TA portal, while every HUD Exchange user can access submit a TA request, you do need special permissions to access anything else in the TA portal. But as long as you do have permissions to view other data in the portal, any portal user can view all of the data in the portal. So unlike DRGR, the TA portal is an open system. So if you're one TA provider, then you can see other TA provider data. You can see anything in view TA request or TA assignments. So that's just something to keep in mind, and one way that this is different from DRGR. So before I get started into drafting work plans, I did want to take a look at TA portal guidance. Like I said, there's some really important information here. This is our test site, so this is actually not a fully up-to-date list of all the guidance that's in the guidance module, but I highly encourage you to take a look at it. So like I mentioned before, if I want to go back to My HUD Exchange, I can always click My HUD Exchange at the top, and I will return to this screen. So let me go ahead and click on TA Work Plan. Like I said before, this is where you're going to enter and edit work plans. So when I click on TA Work Plan, I am taken to this dashboard. And this dashboard is split out into different tabs based off of the status of the work plan. So by default, we're taken to the To Be Drafted tab. So this is where assignments that have been sent by HUD will show up. And this is where you can turn assignments into work plans. Next is the Draft tab. So this is where you will find work plans that you have started drafting but have not yet submitted. Next is the In Review tab. So when you submit a work plan, it will go through a review process with HUD. This is the point where program office reviewers, field office reviewers, and GTRs can provide comments. If anything needs to be changed about the work plan, then they can revert the status of the work plan back to draft. You as the TA provider can make any changes that you need and then resubmit the work plan. Next is the Active tab. So once HUD approves that work plan, then the work plan will become active. And you will also see that work plan in the management module, which I will talk about later in this demonstration. Next is the On Hold/Canceled tab. So at any point in the work plan's life, you can change the status to on hold or to canceled. These are not permanent status changes, so if for whatever reason the work plan was on hold and then it becomes active again, you can always remove that hold or remove that cancellation, and it will revert back to its previous status. And then lastly, we have the Completed tab. So these are TA engagements that have been completed. You'll also notice that for each of these tabs, we have a number of different filters. So you can use these to just filter down the results of work plans to more easily find what you're looking for. By default, it will always auto-filter the TA provider to whatever your TA provider firm is. And there's also this Export to Excel button. So this will export everything based off of the tab and the filter results that you've selected. So that is also useful if you want to take a look at the data inside of the work plans that you've filtered. Another way to find information, if these filters aren't quite narrowing down the results enough, I can click Search TA Work Plans, and that will take me to this search page. So if you look along the left-hand side, you'll see that there's a number of different filters that you can use to narrow down the search results. And then when you click Find, it will pull up the results based off of those filter selections. So this is just a useful way to narrow down the results if the dashboard filters aren't quite doing it for you. Let me return to the dashboard. And I'm going to go back to the To Be Drafted tab. So I'm going to start drafting a work plan. Now there's two ways that you can create a work plan in the system. First is the sort of default way, which is that HUD will create an assignment, and that assignment will show up in the To Be Drafted tab. That's what I'm going to do for this demonstration. But sometimes HUD will assign technical assistance outside of the TA portal. So if you know that you need to create a work plan and that there is not an existing assignment in the system, you can actually create a work plan without an assignment. And you'll do that with this, this button up in the upper right corner called Create Work Plan. So first you would select the type technical assistance. In this case, I'll select Direct TA or Needs Assessment. I'll click Create Work Plan, and that will ask me for some information. First, I have to add the TA recipients, so I'll just pick a random recipient here. Then it will request the TA type. I'll select Direct TA, and then I would fill out these additional fields and click Create Work Plan. So that's one way that you can create a work plan. Let me go back to the dashboard. I'm actually going to create one from an existing assignment. So I can see we have, in this first row, we have an assignment for Carolina, Puerto Rico. Looks like it's for CDBG DR Direct TA. So I'm going to go ahead and click Associate/Create Work Plan. And when I do that, I'm taken to this page where I can see some basic information. So under assignment information, this is all of the information that HUD filled out when they created the assignment. So I can see that there are 2 eligible funding sources that they selected. While these are sort of suggestions, you can actually select funding sources that don't appear in that list, but please communicate with HUD if you intend on doing that. I can also see a scope description that was drafted by HUD. So when I create this work plan, I have a few different options. First, I can select the funding source. Then I can select whether I want to create a brand new work plan or link it to an existing work plan. So this list of available work plans that you could associate this with will be based off of the funding source that you select. So in this case, for 2017 Community Compass Home TA, we have one work plan that exists. Now, when you decide to associate an assignment with an existing work plan, what will happen is the TA recipients that are on this assignment will be added to that existing work plan, as well as some additional information will be added to the assignment background, but nothing else in that existing work plan will really change. Please make sure that you only associate with an existing work plan if you know that's what you need to do, because once you do that, it's an irreversible action. So just be really sure that that's what you want to do. For this demonstration, I'm just going to create a new work plan. So I've selected Create New Work Plan, and I will click Associate Create Work Plan. So when I do that, I am taken to a blank work plan. So let me run through everything that we're seeing here. So at the top, we have some just basic information about that work plan. We have the name. We have the number, which is blank because I haven't filled that out yet. We have the version. So it says version 1. And then draft, which is the status. Under work plan details, I have period of performance, TA provider, TA type, total estimated budget, funding source, and cooperative agreement number. Since some of these fields are blank, let me go ahead and fill those in by clicking Edit Work Plan Information. For all these open text fields, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to write test everywhere. I'll add a period of performance. I could choose to change the funding source here if I wanted to, but I'll just leave it at what it was, and I'll click Update Information. So I've entered everything I need here. You'll see that that warning symbol has changed to a green check mark. So when you're filling out a work plan, these warning symbols indicate places where you still have some required fields to fill out. And once you have satisfied all of those requirements, it will change from that warning symbol to a check mark. Okay. One other thing is in the upper right corner here, we have the work plan status. So this will always show you the status of the work plan. And this is also where you can change the status of the work plan. I don't yet have that option because I have not filled out all the required fields. Once I do that, I will see a change status button right here, and that will allow me to submit the work plan. Okay, so under the work plan details, I have information about the TA recipients and the field offices. One quick note about TA recipients is that for product development and training delivery work plans, you will not see TA recipients because those types of TA just don't have those. But for all other TA types, you will have TA recipients. So let me click on Edit Recipients. So this is where you can add recipients, edit the existing recipients. Let me go ahead and add one. I'll just select a random recipient. So you always select your organization type, the state, the organization. It will automatically enter in a field office based off of that organization, but you can always add or remove field offices or select not applicable if field offices just aren't relevant for this TA engagement. Okay, let me return to the work plan, and I can see that that TA recipient has been added. Okay, so when I scroll down, I'll see that there are some tabs here. So because there's so much information on the work plan, it's split out into these separate tabs. So the first one is assignment information. There isn't really anything to enter here. This is just showing information about the assignment and the request that was used to create this work plan. If I click Show Details, I can see some additional information. If this is a work plan that had multiple assignments associated with it, you would see a separate row for each assignment. If this work plan was created without an assignment, you would see not applicable in most of these columns. Okay, so next I'm going to fill out the People tab. So when I click there, some of these fields are going to be blank because I entered them elsewhere. So Personnel, I'm actually going to be entering that information in the Work Plan Scope tab and the Tasks tab. But this is where I'm going to enter in the HUD staff that will review the work plan. So first I'll enter the GTR. Next, I will enter the program office reviewers. So you have to have at least one, but you can have multiple. Again, this is our testing site, so these are just user accounts that we use for testing purposes. And then for field office reviewers, when I click on that, you will actually see a separate drop down for every field office that you have on this work plan. In this case, because this is our testing site, I don't have field office reviewers accounts for each of these field offices, but normally you would see at least one field office reviewer, and you would select at least one. If this is a work plan where field offices are not really relevant, you can also select not applicable, which I will do in this case. So now we have all of the HUD staff filled out. So the GTR is the person who will ultimately approve or not approve this work plan. And then the program office reviewers and field office reviewers can provide recommendations to the GTR. Next, I will fill out the Tasks tab. And to add a new task, I'll click Add New Task. So first I will enter a task name and a description. Next, I'll enter a period of performance. So this period of performance is independent from the work plan period of performance. Next, I can add labor categories and the estimated number of hours for each. So you have to have at least one category, but you can always add multiple or remove those additional ones. Next, I will enter in an estimated budget. So this estimated budget is actually what is used to calculate the total estimated budget of the work plan. So the total estimated budget just sums the budget of all the tasks. Next, I can enter key personnel and their title. So you have to have at least one, but you can always add additional key personnel if that's necessary. Next, I'm going to add topics. So you have to have at least one topic, but you can have as many topics as are relevant. And the topics are broken out into these different sections. And lastly, we have the outputs. So every task has to have at least one output. And for each one, you'll enter in a title, a description, and an estimated completion date. And if you need to, you can always add additional outputs. So let me go ahead and save the task. And I'm just going to enter in another task. So on the Tasks tab, I can see both tasks that I've entered. If you want to see additional details about any of them, you just click Show Details, and it will expand and show you all the information that you entered on that task. Okay, next we're going to enter the work plan scope information. So first I will enter in the project and activity scope. Next I will add team leads. You have to have at least one team lead. You can always add multiple team leads. Next, I'm going to add travel. So I'll enter the estimated total budget and the number of people, number of days per person, the type of transportation, the related task, and a comment. And I can always add additional trips if necessary. Not all TA engagements will have travel, so this is not a required field, but you should fill this out if you do anticipate travel for that TA engagement. Next is strategic goals. This is also not a required field, but you can enter this in if it's relevant. For product and training work plans, we'd also have an additional field here for learning objectives. It's just an open text field where you can enter in all the different learning objectives, and you can enter in a separate objective for each one. But again, that's only relevant for product and training work plans. Okay, lastly, we have expected outcomes. So the outcomes are broken out into these different categories. When I click on one, I'll see all of these individual outcomes. So what you'll do is select all of the outcomes that are relevant for this work plan. For each, you will enter in a description, and then select the associated task. So every task has to have at least one outcome associated with it, and every outcome has to have at least one task associated with it. So this yellow box right here will let you know all of the tasks that have not yet been associated with the work plan, and you won't be able to submit this work plan unless you have every task associated with at least one outcome. I also have the option of selecting entire work plan, and that might be relevant for some types of outcomes. So let me go ahead and click Save. So now when I scroll down, I can see the 3 outcomes that I selected here. Okay, at this point, I see we have green check marks everywhere. I can see that this Change Status button has appeared. So I have all the required fields necessary to submit this work plan. There are 2 other tabs down here, but I'm going to talk about these after I have already submitted the work plan. So to submit the work plan, I will click this Change Status drop down, click Submit Work Plan to HUD, and then click Change Status. So this will pop up, and this will tell me everybody who will receive an email notification about this submission. So every time the status of a work plan changes, it will send out an email notification to everybody associated with that work plan. If you want to add additional email addresses for that notification to be sent to, you can always add them here. I'll enter in a submission comment, the date that this occurred. I have to check this, and then I will click Submit Work Plan. So now that I've submitted the work plan, I can see that the work plan status has changed to In Review GTR. So I am going to switch my account to a HUD account. So just know right now I'm logged in as a GTR, and I will do this so I can approve the work plan. So this is the work plan we just submitted. And then HUD will review the work plan. If there's any issues, they would click Send for revision, and that would bump the work plan back to a draft status. You should receive a notification if that happens. You can make any edits necessary and then resubmit the work plan. I'm just going to go ahead and approve the work plan though. So let me go and log back in or switch my account back to the TA provider account. When I refresh this page, I can see the work plan is now approved. And as soon as the work plan gets approved, you will see this View Work Plan and TA Management Application button appear. So every approved work plan, approved or completed, I should say, will also appear in the management module, and that's where you're going to enter in activities, barriers, and monthly statuses, but I will show that later. What I want to show you right now is how to edit work plans. So if you need to edit the work plan, you'll click on the Change Status dropdown, click Edit Work Plan, click Change Status, and click Start Editing Work Plan. So as soon as I do this, you can see under version it says version 2 edit in progress. So every time you edit a work plan, it will create a brand new version of that work plan. And you can always go back to earlier versions of the work plan to sort of see the history of that work plan over time. I'm just going to make a few different edits. And now I'm going to click on versions, the versions tab. So this is where you can see every different version of the work plan. In this case, we have 2 versions. And we can see that version 2 is still in the edit in progress status. When I click on this, it will actually show me all of the specific edits that have been made. And if you want to see additional details, you can click on that edit. And it will show you the previous version on the left side, and then the new version of that field on the right side. So that's really useful to see what has changed between versions. I can also click on Compare Versions. And this is where you can directly compare any 2 versions of the work plan, and you would select what those 2 versions are using these drop downs at the top. There's also, I've not yet shown you the comments field. So this is where you'll see a few different things. You'll see what are called system generated comments. This is just an entry that happens every time the status of the work plan changes. You can also add comments to the work plan and attach files if that's relevant. You can see that the comment was added. Everything in this comments section will be in chronological order. This is also where program office reviewers and field office reviewers can provide work plan review comments. As a TA provider, I won't actually be able to add these, but this is where those HUD staff can indicate if they're going to approve the work plan, not approve the work plan, and then they can also provide comments about those decisions. Those are just recommendations. Ultimately, it's the GTR who will decide if the work plan is approved or not. But this is where you can see what the other HUD staff have recommended. Okay, so once I've made all of the necessary edits, I can go ahead and submit those edits. To do that, I can click Submit Work Plan Edits. And from here, I have two different options. If I select Modification, those changes will immediately go into effect. If I select Amendment, then it will actually go back to that in review status, and HUD staff will have to review those changes and either approve or not approve them. So modification should really only be done for minor changes, and amendments should be made for more substantial changes. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to select modification. Okay. So that's everything I wanted to show on the work plan side of things. Next, we're going to go to management. So there's two different ways that you can do that. One is you can click on View Work Plan in TA Management Application. So when I click on that, this will look very similar, but we'll see rather than saying TA Work Plan at the top, it will say TA Management. And when I scroll down, I can see that the tabs at the bottom are different than on the work plan module. So again, indicating that I am in management rather than work plan. But I can also search through work plans that are in TA management. So to do that, I'm going to go to My HUD Exchange. And I'm going to click on TA management. And this will take me to a search page where I can use these filters along the side to filter down my results and select a specific work plan. So that's just another way that you can select your work or find your work plan. So let me return to this work plan that I've been working on. So first I'm going to go to the activity feed. We can already see that there are some entries here. So we have some system generated comments, like when the work plan was approved by the GTR or when we submitted that modification. We can also see and when the work plan edits were started. So all of those system generated comments will also appear here. We can add discussion posts, which are sort of like comments. And then we can also add activities. You'll select a related task and a related recipient and the date that this occurred. And you can also add barriers. So I'll enter a description. Again, I'll select the task, the related recipient, and when it occurred. For the related recipient, you can also select not applicable if it's not specific to a TA recipient. And for barriers, you also have the option of resolving a barrier. So I'll click Resolve Barrier. I'll enter in what the resolution was and then click Resolve Barrier. So yeah, this is where you enter in those activities and barriers, which should be done on a monthly status. So next, I'm going to click on monthly status. So this is where you're going to enter in the monthly status reports. You'll see under unsubmitted status updates, it will have every month listed and it will indicate if you have or have not submitted the status report for that month. Since we just created this work plan this month, we only have November listed. So I will click Create Status Update. So first I'll enter in interim results. Then I can enter in activities for the next 30 days. So next I will see the barriers and activities that I have already entered. So for these activities, I can choose to include them in the status report or not include them. And by default, include them will be the default selection. I also have the option of adding additional activities or barriers. And anything that you add here will also be added to the activity feed. So once I have all of the information that I want in this monthly status report, I can click Submit Status to HUD. Please be sure that you have everything that you need, because once you submit this, you won't be able to make any edits. But I'll go ahead and click Submit Status. And now I can see that November has moved from the unsubmitted status to the submitted section. And I can always click on this to view that status report. Okay, that's everything related to statuses. Next, I'm going to go to tasks. So this should look pretty familiar. Basically, I have the option of changing the status of the individual tasks. And then at the top, you can see the number of tasks in each status. Next, I have the scopes and outcome tab. This is really just a copy of what you'll see on the work plan side. There's nothing really to enter here. It's just there for reference. Okay, next is TA surveys. So this will not appear for product and training work plan, but this will appear for every other type of work plan. So surveys are initiated at the end of a TA engagement, and they are sent out to the related HUD staff, the TA providers, and also the TA recipients. So I'll click Initiate New Survey. So I will enter in information about this particular TA engagement. So I'll select the relevant recipients. Next, I will select if other TA providers were involved. In this case, they weren't, so I'll select no other TA provider involved. I'll select the engagement dates and a brief description of the TA provided. So one thing to note is that everything that you enter on this page will appear in the survey that is sent out to the survey recipient. So definitely write it in a way that will be relevant to people that will receive this survey. So next we have the outcomes. So I'll select only the outcomes that were relevant to this TA engagement. And next I will add the specific survey recipient. So these are the individual people who will receive the survey. And it's broken out into TA recipients, TA providers, and HUD staff. So now I'll click Save. And when I return to the Surveys tab, I can see that we have this survey engagement here. So this will show you all the details that you just entered. And then there's this table of survey recipients. We'll see we have this warning that there are unsent recipients. So at this point, I've only saved the survey. I've not sent it out yet. So to do that, I will click Send Survey. It will just confirm all the details. I'll click Confirm and Send. So now I want to go back and I can see that the status has changed to survey request in progress. That just means that the survey is being processed and has not yet been sent out, but it will inform you when it has been sent out to the recipient. I can always edit or add new recipients at this point if you need to send this survey out to additional recipients. So in most cases, you're just going to have one survey engagement. There are some work plans that have multiple TA engagements. That's very common for on-call work plans. In those circumstances, you would create a separate survey for each of those engagements. You can always create a new survey by clicking Initiate New Survey. And then you could have different survey details for each of those engagements. Okay, so that's everything about surveys. Next, I'm going to go to Documents. So this is where you would see a repository of all documents that have been added to the work plan. In this case, I hadn't added any documents, so you won't see anything here. But you can always add additional documents right here. And then lastly, we have the People tab. This is really just a copy of what you saw on the work plan side of things, but you can also make edits to the HUD staff right here. And you don't actually have to edit the work plan in order to edit the HUD staff. You can do this at any time. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you about management is when the TA engagement is completed, you can always click Mark Work Plan Complete. And this will change the status of the work plan from approved to completed. This is not a permanent action, so if for whatever reason you need to make some edits to that work plan or change something, you can always click Reopen Work Plan, and it will bump that work plan back to a approved status. Okay, so that's everything that I wanted to show about the TA portal. My name for reference is Dan Hegner. You can always email me at dhegner@icf.com if you have any questions. Otherwise, hope you have a great day, and thanks.